Hey Beaver, here's a quick tutorial on Aspire. Show you how to make 2D objects and then 3D objects, the differences, and then how to machine them. Okay, so here you are in Aspire. Um, you're going to click Create a New File. What the heck? Okay, different than Bobcat is with Aspire, you're going to select your material that you're going to be working with first. We'll make this nice and simple. We'll say this is 5 by 5. And 3/4 of an inch. I tell it that my Z0 is at the top and then my origin is the bottom left. I'm using inches and my modeling resolution is very high. The higher that you go on the modeling resolution, the finer detail the G code will go around. If you want to just go slower, like we'll do today, and we'll say standard, and then you could tell what appearance you want your material. So let's leave it as oak soft here. Create the material, here we go. Now at the very bottom here, these are the tabs you need to be concerned with. Drawing anything 2D. Modeling anything 3D. Aspire calls its 3D objects components. And you'll see component tree up here. So basically what I'll do is I'll show you how to work with bitmaps and JPEGs. So if I wanted to machine out, like say a logo, for example, okay, there's two ways that I can do it. I can import my bitmap vectors or an actual completed component in 3D model. I can import the bitmap like this, show you where it's at, and we'll do the patch. Okay, I'll grab the patch and center it wherever I want. I'll use these to center the center material, center on the vertical. Then I can say here and say fit vectors to this bitmap. If I want to get vectors off of this bitmap and just use it as a shell, then I could say, well, do it black and white, and then I can adjust how tight those vectors are going to be, and then say fit the vectors. Okay. Then if I take the bitmap itself and move it away, I have the vectors that it drew around that. Now I can work with these and machine them out like traditional. Like I can go in and select the vector, node editor, and start moving around the vectors however I want to do it. Okay? But if I just want to do something really fast and create a 3D model out of this, I'll show you how to do that. So let's erase those vectors. Let's take this, move it back to the center. Now I just want to create a quick 3D model of this. I import the bitmap, go to modeling, and select create a component from the selected bitmap. Okay? You can see it pops up in the component tree and it turns a different shade of color. What I'll do is I can go to the 3D view and look at it. Okay? Created a component. And then what I do to kind of help this is tile the windows horizontally. Okay? So there's the component. Now, I want to finish building the component. It's taken a lot of the detail that I don't want to do. So I'm going to work strictly in the 3D model here. And I'm going to smooth this out first. So select the component, select smoothing filter. All right, and as I move this slider, you can see I can smooth it out to kind of get it better. Okay, that looks about right. Right about here. Okay, I'll apply that. Okay, now I'm going to take this component. If I double click on the component tree, this is where I can start setting shape heights. Okay, so it's deep. You could see it's machining into it. Now, if I wanted it to be reversed, I would go like this and say subtract from the previous component. So now it's completely raised it up and all that stuff, right? I can change the base height if I want it to sit up higher or if I wanted to sit up lower. Okay? And you can see here at the bottom right-hand corner, it tells me where my cursor is. So right now my cursor is sitting on negative, in the Z, negative 0.075, whereas the top of this would be negative 0.0169. Okay? So let's say I'll just make this base 0. I'll make this a negative, and I'll make this shape height, say 1/4 of an inch-ish. Okay? All right, so I can close that. Now say I just want to take that and I go, I'm happy with it. I want to machine it. The very top right here, see Toolpath. Just click on it, pin it, so it sits there and then it becomes a part of the deal. I can also unpin this and remove the modeling pane. All right, when you have a component, a 3D image that you just created, you can, I believe, and I haven't done this. Here we go. Export as STL, slice it, do all that funky stuff to it. Or I just want to machine it out. So what I'll do is I'll do a roughing and then a finishing. So I create a 3D roughing toolpath. All I have to do to create this roughing toolpath is to make sure that I have the component selected that I want to rough out. If I wanted to just rough out a portion of it, right? The program will only apply the toolpaths to the vectors or the whole components that you have selected. Meaning, if I go to the drawing tab here and just draw a little square right here, okay? Now I select that square and I say I want to create a 3D roughing toolpath, okay? It's going to 3D rough everything that's inside that square, okay? Check the step down is not the depth of the model being machined. Okay, so that's just in my tool here. Diameter, path depth, step over, step down, all that stuff looks good. This is a 1/2 inch end mill I'm trying to use. Okay, so you can see, and if I preview that toolpath that I just made, it's going to rough out just that portion inside, but I don't want to do that. I want to rough out the whole thing. So, select that toolpath, we'll delete it. Okay. I'll go back into here and I'll unselect that box or I'll just delete it altogether. And just click on the component itself, make sure it's selected. Click 3D roughing. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch end mill for this. So you say select which tool you want to do it. 1/4 inch end mill. The step over is if it's 50%, it means that it's going to move it's going to move one radius basically over and always give you a cut. So you'll always be cutting 2 passes with the deal. And your feed rates, RPMs, and your pass depth is how deep it's going to go per each pass. Apply that, select it, and you can either 3D level it or Z level it or 3D raster it. Okay, I'll raster it along the Y. Calculate. It'll do its thing here. There it goes. I'll reset the preview from the previous one and then preview the visible toolpath. Okay. Now once that's done, I'll close that and create another toolpath for the finish. And then for this finish, I'm going to use a 1/16 inch ball nose bit with a 5% step over. So it's going over that stuff really fine. All right, let's calculate. Okay, you can see I could just spin this all around and do whatever you want to do. This is a awesome feature to preview this, okay? And then I could say preview visible toolpath. And there it goes. You can see what it's doing. The best thing you can use this preview feature for, and it's fantastic, is I can see what comes out very detailed and what needs more touch-up work. And I'll show you how to do that. But so far, so good. And a lot of these notches that you're going to see, like this notch right here where my cursor's at, that is simulating the cutter going through those spots, right, and making these gouges. In reality, when you actually cut the wood or whatever it is, these are so much smaller than you think they are that they never actually become visible. But I'll go over it again nonetheless just to show you how to clean it up. Okay, so there it is. I got a nice little patch, so you'd be looking at it and say, hey, this is good. I'm going to machine that out. All right. But do you see when it did that level, it 3D machined all the outside too, right? So it was a lot of unnecessary cutting. So here's what I can do for that. So I'll reset the preview. I will run, if you just select one toolpath, preview visible toolpath, Let that one go. Okay, go to 3D finish and see how it's doing. It should be doing the, oh, it looks like it's just doing the inside. Okay, never mind. If it was doing the whole thing, what you would do is come back into here and create a box around this and then have the box selected and say, hey, just machine inside this box that I've selected. Another way to do that, and they have a little feature for it, you select the deal and say create vector boundary from selected component. And you click it, and it's just basically going to create a box around here. And if you zoom in, you can kind of see it. There it is. So that vector selected. So I would select that vector and say, hey, I just want you to machine what's inside here. And I'll show you how that works. So I take that box that I just created and say I want to touch up the 28th Bomb Squad. I'll put my cursors, or I'll put this box around the 28th Bomb Squad. Okay, I'm going to try and get it as close as I can because it'll look weird, and I'll show you why. Okay, so my box is around the 28th Bomb Squad, and I want to touch that up because I want it to look a little bit better than it does in the preview view. Okay, so here's all I'll do. Select the box, come back here, create another 3D finishing toolpath. This time I'm going to use a 0.04 inch diameter cutter with a step over of 2%. Apply that, and I will create that path. Okay, and you can see it just calculated a path to finish up that 28 Bomb Squad. Now if I run that visible path, watch the change. So you could just basically, it tightens everything up a little bit better. But now you could see the different, like the computer is kind of simulating the wood that would be left over because remember, this whole thing is a 5-inch by 5-inch. So those cutters can't really get down in there. So if I had a thinner cutter or engraver, I could get it to look a lot better. All right. Let's apply this same finishing tool path to the whole thing instead. So what I'll do is I'll say I don't need this box anymore. I'll select the component itself, select the path that I had created, make sure that's selected, and just calculate it for the whole thing. It's going to take a while. But yeah, the big thing to remember about the whole thing is the system is very designed to say when you do tool paths, it says, yeah, I'll do this tool path, but tell me what you want to do that tool path to. If it's a profile or a pocket, and I'll show you some 2D stuff here in a minute. But the 3D stuff is very vanilla, very simple. Import your stuff, create a component, and then rough it and finish it. And then you can select which parts that you want to do. And I'll show you how I would cut this out at the end too. About halfway done. Okay, while this is going on, I am going to show you how I would cut this out. Okay, so first I'd want to cut out around this box right here. Okay, I could get, funky and create a nice border that mirrored the patch, but just for the sake of doing it, I'll show you how I would do it. Oh, let's see, it's calculating, so it's not letting me do it. Let me see if I could just draw a box here. No, nothing. Let's see, what else can I tell you? Oh, here, follow my mouse here. I'll show you some of the things that you can do. Okay, this button right here is create shape from vectors. So if I just drew a circle, but I wanted that to be a dome, a 3D dome, I would just click on the circle that I had created using the drawing tab right here. Okay, Go into modeling, click the circle, and then click this create shape from vectors, and then it will bring me to another dialog and show up the 3D view and say that I can make it domed, I can make it bowled out, I can make it flat and just make it like a cylinder. I can do whatever I want to it. And then create that component, name it, put it in the tree, and then keep adding components to it to make whatever part it is that I want. Remember, Aspire calls their 3D objects components. Okay, this next one right here is a two-rail sweep. This one's pretty cool. It's cool for making edges and things like that. You select two edges that you want it to sweep to, and then you create a third um, design, if you will, or like what the edge you want it to look like. And then you would sweep it between those two rails, and I'll kind of point you towards that. Okay, here's our finished toolpath using that .04 cutter, and I'm just going to preview that visible one, and we can see the change. Let's unpin this. Okay, preview visible. Okay, it's cleaning up the bomb squad. It's cleaning up the face a little bit. It's defining the ear a little bit better. So you can see you can experiment with the different cutters that you want to use and the different precisions to see if you can get, better results. It all depends on how long you want it to machine, and I'll show you where you can find that info too. It's really nailing the feather there too. Kind of cut a lot out of it. Okay, so there's our finished deal. So boom, we want to cut it out. Okay, so I just want to cut a square out of it, right? So let's go back to the view. Okay, select the component, create a border around it. We're using that create vector boundary from selected component. Select the line, right? Then go over here and say I want a toolpath on that line. I want to cut that line out. So here you have profiling, pocketing, drilling, engraving, V-carving, fluting, texturing, prism carving, inlays, and then your 3D paths, roughing and finishing. So basically, I just want to create a profile. So I'm going to go Profile. It says, what depth do you want to start at? What depth do you want to cut to? Well, what I can do is say, is how deep is the part after it actually 3D machines it? And then what I can do is go over here and just put my cursor at the lowest part of it. Okay, and at the bottom right, I could see the Z is equal to negative 0.24 inches right there. But this flat right above it is Z is negative 1.48. I'll call it Z is negative 1.5 if I want to drill it down, right? So it'll drill down to Z negative 1.5 and then start going around and cutting it out. So let's do that. Okay, got that selected. Let's profile. I'm going to start at 1.5. Remember, this is a depth, so I don't have to put negative 1.5. I just put 1.5. Or, sorry, 0.15. Okay, and I want to cut it all the way out, so I want to get down to 0.75. So what I have to do is do the difference, load that pilot shit, and say I want it to cut 0.6 because that would equal 0.75. Okay, and I'm going to use a 1/4 inch end mill, and I'm going to take 0.2 inches off at a time. And then it already auto-calculates 3 passes, but I can edit them if I want. If I want to do it, say, in 5 passes, then it shows me that my new pass depth will be 0.12 per. I can say I just want to do it in 2 or just do the whole thing in 1. I'm going to do it in 4. Okay. I want to machine outside the line. I could outside the line, inside the line, or on the line. I'm going to do outside so it keeps everything squared away. Climb versus conventional, you know about that. That's just the direction of the spindle. Okay. Now, since it's on my table and my part is, say, clamped down to the work surface, I want to add tabs to it. So I'm going to add a tab, edit the tabs. I'm going to look at my 3D view here, or whoops. Okay, I'm going to add 3 tabs. Okay, and see, I can see where those tabs are going to be. So I like that position. And then I can see the tabs they're 0.35 long and they're a 1/4 inch thick. So that just holds the part inside the material before it gets cut out. Leads um, is how it gets to the cutting line. I don't really care about that because my end mills will cut. Ramps are pretty cool because I can add ramps to the toolpath. Basically, instead of plunging straight down and then starting to cut, it will ramp in along a distance. So what I'm going to do is do a smooth ramp at a distance of, say, 6 inches. So over 6 inches, over a 6 inch span, it's going to eventually get down to cutting depth. I'll actually make that 3 inches since the part's only 5 inches. Okay. And then I will rename this the cutout and then just calculate it. Okay. And then I can preview the visible. I can see what it's going to do. Okay. So I can see there's the part, there's the tabs already in there, and that's what it's going to look like. So it's going to be a pretty thick piece right there. Okay. All right, so that is basic 3D stuff. And then basically I could take these paths, okay, and save these four tool paths by going like this. Save tool path. I click on the tool path I want to save, verify that it's the 3D roughing. Yep. Tells me the tool I want to use, and then I can save it. And then when I save it, that's when I can rename it to whatever I want and put it in any file that I want. Save all the toolpaths and I run them sequentially. If you have toolpaths that use the same tool, for example, our first 3D finish, nah, disregard. Like say if my cutout and my roughing use the same tool, like both used a 1/2 inch end mill, I can click on this output all visible toolpaths to one file and it'll do both toolpaths at once. Okay, good on that. Let's do real quick. Let's do a little 2D action. I'm going to delete all this stuff, no components. Copy. I'm going to delete, 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 delete. We'll keep this box here. Okay, and then I will do strictly 2D stuff. So I'll draw a circle. Okay, and then I'll show you, I'll put kind of a dome and some text on top of the square here. Okay, so I'm going to draw text. We'll write bone, very fitting, in Tahoma, 5.5. Grab the text, I'll shrink it down, and I'll put it inside there. Okay. And then if I wanted it, all your alignment and everything is down here. So I could say, hey, I want to align this in the center of this. I select them both, and I just say, I want this to be in the center of that and the center of that. Cool. And I want this to be in the center of this, the center of that. Oh, but that moves. So boom, boom, boom. Okay, done. Let's machine it out. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a pocket inside here. Okay, so I'm going to make a pocket. I'm going to start at 0 and I'm going to pocket this out to 0.2 inches using a 1/2 inch end mill. Okay, and pass depth is going to be 2. That sounds good. Okay, calculate it, reset the preview, preview that visible toolpath. Interesting. Let's try that again. Okay. Pocket down to 0.2 with a 1/2 inch end mill. Okay, preview visible. There it goes. Okay, we'll call that good. Okay, I'll just stop that preview there. Okay, so I know that pocket's there and that's down to 0.2. So now I want to create a component from that circle. So modeling, create a shape from vectors, okay? And I want it to be a dome, all right? And then I'll say the base height is gonna be negative 0.2, okay? I am bad luck getting these things to line up correctly. Okay, so yeah, you could see the base height. So imagine that this is the modeling plane. It's going to start its model at negative zero point 0.2, which should be the bottom of the pocket that we just cut out. And then the height of this thing is going to have to be zero point 0.2. All right. Okay. So I'm going to apply and add that shape. Okay. That's good. Now I'm going to take these letters and I'm going to create a component off of there. And I'll say these are called letters. Let's start a new component. Oh, kind of did that wrong. Okay, well, we'll say the base height is, let's see, negative 0.1. Let's see how it looks. Okay, see how it cut it outside? It cut it out of the bone, but I want it to be on top of. So I want it to not cut out. I want it to subtract. So if I subtract it, boom, it pops up. Okay, but now I want the height of it. I'll say this is negative 0.1 and the height is 0.1. Let's apply that. See what it looks like. Okay, happy. And it curves around the whole thing, so I'm good to go there. If I play around with the settings too, see which ones work. Okay, that's good. All right, bone, got that. So both of those are nice. I got the two components. I could rename this component to dome. Okay. So now what I'll do is I'll take this component and this component and I'll just call it, I'll bake them together. Baking is like grouping that you can't undo. All right. And it's used for a lot of different things. So you'll kind of get better at it. But no, I make them one component so it's easier to work with. Then what I'll do is create a vector boundary around them. And I'll show you why I did that. So I have this vector because when I do my 3D roughing, I just want to rough in this area. I don't want to rough outside here. It's a wasted tool path. So I selected the vector that housed the 3D object that I want to rough. I'm going to create the 3D roughing. Now it's going to ask me, where is this model in the 0.75 thickness of material? And it's saying, is there a gap above it? Is there a gap below it? Where is it at? It's actually at the top because remember we set the base of this at negative 0.2, which is the base of the pocket. So if I moved it down, see I can move the model down or up inside the model itself. And it tells me where the modeling plane is. Right now the modeling plane is -1 and the model is 0.3 inches, which makes it a 0.2 total kind of thing. Cool, I'm happy with this. Let's leave it alone. Change this. Yep, we didn't change anything. Let's mill it out of a 1/4 inch end mill. Okay, we've got that. Let's preview the visible toolpath. Okay, that was the roughing. And then let's go back and create the finishing toolpath with a 1/4 inch ball nose. And I might have jacked it. I'm still kind of learning this thing, but I might have jacked it up of saying that the modeling plane might have to be smaller than the deal, you know? Oh, okay, I know why. Because I pocketed it first. Okay, so watch this. Okay, so let's reset the preview. Let's take the pocket and move the pocket down. Let's 3D rough it. Okay. Let's 3D finish it. Okay. And then remember the pocket, if I pocket it right now, remember the program is dumb. It doesn't know the difference between what I've already done and what I don't plan to do. So if I pocketed it right now, It does exactly that, right? But I don't want it to do that. So I need to tell it to pocket around it. So the way I do that is I say the pocket, instead of it just being a pocket around there, I need to select that and this vector and then run the pocket toolpath. Okay, because then with those two vectors selected, it'll pocket in between them. See that? So preview visible. Okay, and then let's run the 3D finish and the 3D roughing. Nice. Cool. And obviously, you can keep working with it to get it nicer looking and everything. If I had to do this again, what I would do is just take the model and put the model lower in the surface and do it after, or you can make the whole thing a component and then have the thing machine it out as one 3D pass. Or take my pocket and say instead of using a half-inch end mill because it doesn't have clearance, if I use a 16th inch end mill, okay, because that's why it looked like it was weird. And then I run that toolpath again because now it's using a thinner cutter. It can get into these small spots and actually make the square, you know? See how it's taking it away and everything there. Yeah. So, dude, a very powerful program. Like I said, just kind of think about what you want to do, and it can do it. But very easy to work with in terms of pictures and things like that. Remember, if you're getting results like this, and you're like, "Oh man, that looks like crap," it's because either the cutter, it's trying to replicate what the cutter that you chose is going to do. So remember, for that 3D finish, I said I'm using a 1/4 inch ball nose with a 15% step over. If I changed that cutter out and said, since it's a small project, I call it a 1/16 inch ball nose with a 5-inch step over, and then recalculated the toolpath and then ran it again. Now you can see it cleans it up and does it real nice. So that's what I would want to use for something of this small. Cool, man. And then right here, the reason this is up here is because I would say the pocketing. I would take the pocket and say instead of 0.2, let's go 0.3. Let's go a little bit deeper because maybe I didn't match it up quite right. So preview that visible toolpath and we'll see it kind of come in and take that, raise up that bone there a little bit. Giggity. Cool. Yeah, man. You can see you can kind of keep playing with it to kind of get the exact results you're looking for. But, dude, hey, hope this helps, man. Hope this kind of gets you into the basics of Aspire's 2D and 3D workings and kind of showing you how easy it can be, especially to get the photos and the clip art converted into 3D objects real quick so that you can machine them. All right, brother. Give me a buzz if you got anything else. See ya.